It's time for everyone's favorite game, Compete Yourself Fitter. I prepared 5 dishes for you folks to eat. Each one was inspired by a song by The Fall. If you manage to guess what song the dish correlates to, your opponent must do 10 push-ups. If neither of you manage to guess correctly, you must both do 10 push-ups. Before you, you have a goat cheese and beet salad. The word you are looking for is salad.
Is it Eat Yourself Fitter?
Incorrect.
I'm very excited about it. I love a beet salad.
The song is Glam Racket. The line is, stop eating all that chocolate, eat salad instead.
Oh, about Craig. I forgot about this.
This next one, I think you will both enjoy the dish very much. It took about 5 hours to make. These are fondant potatoes, which you cook by roasting them for hours upon hours upon hours in a miso dashi broth. So they should be really good. I'm excited to hear your feedback on this, but potatoes is the operative word here.
Soup and mashed potatoes?
That's not what I'm going for, but if you were correct, I'm going to give it to you.
Yes.
It's pumpkin soup and mashed potatoes.
Soup and mashed potatoes.
So you owe me 20 push-ups, you owe me 10, but enjoy your potatoes first. What I was looking for was Crap Rap 2 / Like to Blow. The line is, I live on snacks, potatoes in packs. Thoughts on these? Was it worth 5 hours?
They're pretty good.
That is distinctly not telling me it's worth 5 hours.
I don't know what 5 hours is worth to you, but I really like this.
All right. So you both, before you, just have a steak. I'm a little out of practice with it, but I think, Joe, yours is going to make a medium thereabouts.
Very nice medium.
Oh, and you should be closer to a medium. Any guesses on the song? This is probably the easiest. Well, the second easiest. Just because it's in the title.
It's in the title.
I see the corners filled with hitmen. 2 young lawyers. They are whispering in the steak place. The steak place.
I don't remember this song. What
This is
record
from
is
the
this
song,
song?
The Steak Place.
I will say, I'm enjoying the steak. Thank you very much.
You got it.
What is this?
What you have before you are orange bars. Orange is the word.
Oh, I am curious orange.
Very good. So you're up to 40, and you're only at 20. Good for you.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, before you have coffee.
This is a really good meal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Stop avoiding the subject. What's the song?
Totally Wired.
That is correct. Can't you see my butterfly stomach growls? I drank a jar of coffee, then I took some of these.
There's so many Marky Smith lyrics that run through my brain unbidden, and that's one of them. You hear it in his voice. More than most singers, I hear the words in his voice.
As to relate to the Gen Z audience, you would say that lives in your head rent-free.
They live in my head rent-free. It's true.
No cap.
Really burnt the dickens out of my hand. It's
Do you get to see a doctor?
It's a bad scene. Are you one?
No.
No, we don't have time now.
I work at a hospital.
You're aware of some.
I've met many doctors.
Yeah. Nice. You got nice friends?
The doctors who are my regulars are all really nice.
Okay. This is Deep Dive Divas. Each episode, myself and Owen and Joe listen to every blessed studio album by an artist of Joe's choosing and share our findings
with Joe.
Hey, everybody.
How you been, bud?
I've been great. How you been?
Yeah, fine. Just here, making dinners.
How have you been, Owen?
Chilling.
That's cool.
All right, we're all caught up. Just some insider baseball. For anyone who's listening to this episode, I oftentimes will listen to an upcoming band while writing a upcoming episode. So the entire time I wrote this episode for the fall, I was listening to the Jonas Brothers' complete discography.
That's a stark contrast. Bands don't get a lot more different than that.
If anyone doesn't know who The Fall is, they're kind of like the Jonas Brothers. They're a rock band often classified as post-punk pioneers whose careers spanned from 1976 until 2018. That's 42 years.
Just like the Jonas Brothers.
The Fall's run is older than all the Jonas Brothers combined.
Rest in peace, Joe Jonas.
What? Is that a theory that he died?
No, I'm foreshadowing.
Oh.
By the time this comes out.
This is our St. Patrick's Day episode. It comes out March 1st, but it's good for... Joe, you probably celebrate in a true appreciative form St. Patrick's Day more than anyone else I know.
Is that right?
I would say so. You eat genuine Irish food. You listen to Irish music. You're not just treating it as a day to get drunk.
That's true.
Like me.
I don't need an excuse to do that. That's amateur hour.
Sure, that's every day.
Yeah, sure.
No, but sincerely, like when I think of St. Patrick's Day, I'm like, Joe's someone who does that holiday right.
I got a playlist.
Yeah.
It's not like just folk songs. It's like real, like contemporary Irish. Yeah,
Van Morrison, Gilliband,
Sinead O'Connor,
Fontaines, DC.
Yeah, they're on there.
Does anyone have any St. Patrick's Day resolutions this year?
Jesus. Christ.
Worship Jesus. All right.
I'm going to kiss the Blarney Stone.
Yeah. Well, you're going to get to Ireland before, within the next 2 months?
By the next St. Patrick's Day.
So in 2025.
Throwing down the
early
gauntlet.
2026, you're going to kiss the Blarney Stone.
Why not?
Okay. We'll hold you to it.
We'll
if
check
you
in
don't,
next
you
year.
owe us 10 push-ups.
All right.
Just for the record, no one has done any push-ups in this room today.
I'll get to it.
You better. The Fall put out 31 albums in their 42 years. They also have 59 live albums and 44 compilations. Those are astounding numbers, but I think the most astounding number that can be attributed to this band is 60, which is the number of band members they have had throughout their history, many of whom Marky Smith fired.
I did listen to a podcast about The Fall by two brothers that were members. We'll get to them.
Sure.
And something that
Joe and Nick Jonas.
just like the Jonas Brothers.
Rest in peace.
Revolving lineup. I'm sure there's many members of the Jonas Brothers that aren't permanent members.
Sure.
Probably most.
Yeah.
Hey, and you know what rhymes with Jonas Brothers, right? Harmonica.
Carry on.
That's something that they discussed on the show. Was that even during their run of the band, where they were primary members of the band, there were other people that would play gigs if they just didn't, if they had like work or whatever, like somebody else would just play a gig. It would like pinch it. And that was just a very normal part of The Fall.
Sure. Which is a very abnormal and bad thing to do in a band.
I guess.
This is a band that I think has... The Philadelphia Eagles are currently just trouncing the Washington Commanders. And
41-23.
It is an NFL conference championship, the NFC East, a match tonight. And you're going to hear things blowing up in the background every time the Eagles score. This is a band that I think has avoided notice and popularity by the masses, but they made a massive impact on those that did listen to and appreciated them. And I think many bands that are quite famous today would not exist without The Fall. The influential and legendary BBC DJ, John Peel, is on record saying that they were his favorite band.
Yes.
Ever.
Yes.
Full stop.
And he knew a lot of bands.
Personally.
Yeah.
And biblically.
I watched a bit of a documentary where John Peel indicated that though they were his favorite band, he did not get the impression that they liked him very much.
I get the impression they, especially Marky Smith, did not seem to like anyone very much, himself included.
No, maybe top of the list.
Follow me back, if you will, to the year of 1957, England. Everyone's depressed and malnourished.
The teeth. There's teeth.
They love that movie Teeth over there.
That's what I meant.
Marky Smith is born, and I know it sounds like I'm saying Marky, like M-A-R-K-Y, as in Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. It's Mark E. Smith. Does anyone know what the E stands for?
Everett.
It's Edward. Boring. He lived in Manchester, so he's a Mancunian, with his mum, Irene, and his puppy, Jack. and his 3 sisters, Barbara, Caroline, and Suzanne. He dropped out of school before he was 16 years old, which is pretty close to the end of public school there, so he almost made it.
I remember reading some quote about while he was in school, they raised the age you could drop out when he turned the age that you could drop out. Something like he was 15 and they raised it to 17 or something.
He's like, I'm out of here.
I'm leaving anyway.
Well, the joke was kind of on him because he ended up going back and taking night classes while working a job for a factory that processed meat. And he would also work on the Salford docks. So he's pretty working class dude in a working class town. Mm-hmm. He moved in with his girlfriend, one Una Baines, who was the same age as him. So you have these 2 16-year-old children living in, a smoky town doing hard labor. She would go on to play keyboards for the Fall. Their adolescent life together has been chronicled by Australian comic book author Keith McDougall in a graphic memoir called I'll Be Your Mirror. Well, as they age a little bit in 1976, like so many, Marky Smith saw the Sex Pistols at one of their first shows at the Lesser Free Trade Hall in the great city of Manchester that June. And like so many who were in attendance, all 5 people who saw that show, they all started bands. And this is where we get the Fall proper in 1976. They specifically form in a section of Manchester called Prestwich, which is 3 miles north of the actual city of Manchester. For any listeners who haven't heard the Fall, I would like to share a quote from Marky Smith that I think is quite helpful to you as you hear the band throughout this episode. He said, quote, "Rock and roll isn't even music, really. It's a mistreating of instruments to get feelings over." They get their name from, do you know? I feel like
Is it the Albert Camus novel?
Yes, it's from an Albert Camus novel of the same name that was published the year before Marky Smith's birth.
I was going to say The Season.
Their favorite time of year.
You know what? You're right. I don't know where Camus got it from. I'm assuming The Season.
I've read the novel.
Does it come from The Season?
It's about a lawyer who is, I forget if he's talking to the bartender who is described as a gorilla. I don't know if it's meant to be taken literally. And the lawyer is sort of going over, am I a bad person? Here's all the reasons I'm a bad person. Not a long list of reasons he's a good person. And then at the end of the novel, I think he jumps off a bridge.
The band becomes Smith's plan for success. He dropped out of college and quit his job at the docks. So this is it. He has burned all of his bridges.
He went to college. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Briefly, but he went. So just who are the Fall? You got Marky Smith on vocals, Martin Brama on guitar, Tony Friel on bass, and Una Baines, the aforementioned, on keyboard. But she doesn't start off as their keyboard player. She starts off as their, quote, drummer, meaning she played on biscuit tins because the group didn't have enough money for a drum kit. A little translation here. Biscuits are, for reasons beyond me, they're what the British call cookies. Una is banging away on these empty biscuit tins because they can't afford a drum kit. And she switches over to the keyboard because they find one that is cheap.
You can tell.
Yes. They initially were just friends, the Fall, who wrote poems and essays and would read them to each other while also doing a lot of drugs. That's a fun, semi-wholesome pastime, I would say.
Yeah, at least they were writing essays.
They got turned on to a lot of garage rock and experimental music of the time, ranging from the Stooges to Can while they're doing all this stuff. We're in the, mid-70s here. 1977, the band plays their first show in the basement of the Northwest Arts Building in Manchester. Martin Brama, the guitarist, recalls, quote, "It was a small room and about half the audience was the Buzzcocks." Which I think anyone who has been in a band has been in those sorts of situations where pretty much most of the audience is just other bands.
Shout out to The Nail.
Before this particular show, they met a fellow named Steve Ormond who plays drums at the show. He was the first casualty to be kicked out by Marky Smith, supposedly for, quote, political differences. The sad story is in 1994, Ormond took his own life via train. Another fellow named Carl Burns would take over on drums after having previously been in a band with Tony Friel, the bassist. With this more stable band, the Buzzcocks manager, Richard Boone, pays to get them in a studio. He saw them at the show and was like, all right, come record something. And that's where they make their first EP, which we won't even mention, entitled Bingo Masters Breakout! For
about a decade, That was the only original Fall song that I knew. I knew that song. That was on an NME compilation, I think. That lived on my iPod for a long time. And
They dug deep.
oh yeah, it was like a 3-disc. It was like a long thing, and it did not inspire in me much enthusiasm to go look for more music by the Fall.
It's a weird place to start. It's a weird place to start.
Yeah, it's technically the beginning,
Yeah.
but it's not representative.
No.
All he sees is a back of chairs, in the mirror a lack of hairs. A lack round which he fills out, hear the players all shout. Bingo Masters break out, Bingo Masters break out, Bingo Masters break out.
So their singles were released by Virgin Records, showing that there is hope for anyone who attempts to make music, or at least if you were alive in the 1970s. They will constantly change their record label all throughout their career. I will mention that occasionally, but believe me, it's happening way more than I'm going to let on here, but in the interest of efficiency, I shan't dwell on it. And it is at this point that things start getting shaken up with personnel in the band, and it will never, ever stop. Tony Friel quits the band because he doesn't like their new manager. Their new manager also happens to be Marky Smith's new girlfriend, Kay Carroll. You remember how he was living with Una Baines and everything?
Yeah.
They're not dating anymore. Kay Carroll was an absolute bulldog of a manager, and there are great videos in multiple documentaries about this band of her just calling people and shaking them down for the band's money. It's pretty cool to watch. So how does she get all involved in this mix? She was a friend of Una Baines, and they worked in a psychiatric hospital together. Yep. Una quits the band shortly thereafter, struggling with drugs and mental health issues, and I imagine the possibility of seeing her friend and ex get together.
That sounds like a real bummer.
Yeah.
Everything about that sounds like a bummer.
Una starts a new group later on called Blue Orchids alongside current Fall guitarist Martin Brahma, who would quit the band the following year.
Her band?
He quits the Fall the following year.
To pursue the Blue Orchids, or just
to leave, and then
have
I
a more
think
normal
Una's
life?
like, you want to work on music with me?
I see.
So Una is replaced briefly on keys by Yvonne Paulette. They cycle through a bunch of new bassists to replace Tony Friel before landing on their roadie, a child at age 16 named Mark Riley. I find it inappropriate for a 16-year-old to be in this band, but I find it even more inappropriate that he was their roadie because that's a dangerous job. It's a dangerous job. Usually it's like some grizzled vet who has seen some stuff, and the fact that Mark Riley is Mark with a C, should be noted, is schlepping this alcoholic band of degenerate stuff all around. Mark Riley, so again, let's keep it straight. We got Mark with a K, E. Smith, lead singer, and now Mark Riley,
Marky,
M-A-R-C.
like Wally.
Yeah, right. Mark Riley said, quote, "The Fall were my favorite band when I joined, and they were still my favorite band when I got kicked out." He is a treasure trove of great quotes. He also said, quote, "Joining The Fall was the second best thing that ever happened to me in my working life. The best thing was getting kicked out." Martin Brahma, the guitarist for now of The Fall, recalls that cycling through bassists, quote, "wasn't so much about the music. It was more about how we were being treated on a daily basis." Marky Smith seems horrible to work with at various stages. Some people really seem to like working with him, and then other people bring it back and they're like, no, he was a nightmare.
I have to imagine working a day job. Marky Smith was probably the most unpleasant version.
Yeah. The band gets it together enough with this lineup to record their first album, number 1, Live at the Witch Trials, which they claim they did so in one day. I believe it.
Yeah, that seems clear. I think, okay, so I this full disclosure. We first listened to all of the albums by The Fall
Years ago?
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And
This is what I did in between periods at school. I was listening to The Fall in chronological order.
3 times in a row, every album.
Every album.
This album does not bear that kind of repeated listening.
No.
But I did hate it more 4 years ago than when I revisited. I think it's kind of charming. I don't know if it's very good. I really enjoy when he's shouting, yeah, industrial estate, yeah, and that's really good. That really makes me smile. love crappy, poorly recorded punk rock music, you might really like this.
Yeah, if you like the Stooges, even then, I don't know.
If you like the bonus tracks on the Stooges, you'd probably
Fair
like
enough.
this.
Fair enough.
And I'm going to introduce a new segment. This is called Improv with O-Dog.
Oh.
Cue the music. Welcome back. Guys, you guys ever act?
No.
A little bit.
We're going to be doing some improv today.
Okay.
I brought a character. You guys are just going to follow along.
Okay.
Great.
We're in a doctor's office.
Okay.
Your name is Terry Peebert. And your name is Jerry Skeeter.
Okay.
Okay. And scene. Hey, Jerry and Terry. I don't know which one of you. You guys kind of mixed up your handwriting. It's kind of hard to read.
Yeah.
I can't tell which one is which. I'm just gonna read the reason for visit.
Okay.
Just whatever you guys wrote, and you just.
This feels like a HIPAA violation.
All right. Sweet Lord Almighty, where do I begin? No more belly button for me. It's clogged. Let me explain. I was sitting on my couch after a long day at work, watching Survivor on my tablet. I guess I was too immersed in Jeff Probst's eyes that my pierogies that I had boiling in my upstairs kitchen caught on fire. Don't ask me how. I don't make them that much. Well, anyway, I grabbed a fire extinguisher and started fighting for my life. A neighbor called the fire department, and they showed up within 3 minutes. Once they did, I was chatting it up with the fireman when I pulled out my secondary tablet to find a picture of pierogies. He had never heard of them. When I was launched into the air by the crazy hose on the fire trucks. I was flying at such an insane velocity that I landed in a tree nearby. Mind you, my shirt had already been removed prior, before I got home from work, and I landed straight on the oak, skin to tree. Little piece got stuck in my belly button, and it's been clogged since. I used everything possible. WD-40, a toothbrush, that's it. Also, I forgot how to urinate. So, which...
That was me. What's the problem?
It seems like belly button clogged and forgetting how to urinate.
Again, I don't think I should be hearing this. This feels like a HIPAA violation.
I don't care.
I just like the handwriting was kind of... I can... Terry or Jerry, I didn't...
It was me.
Okay. All right. Well, doctor's ready.
Oh, thank you.
And scene.
So that was improv, but you wrote almost all of that down.
Well, it was improv for you guys.
Okay. Carl Burns, the drummer, quits right after recording this record, and Martin Brahma followed him out the door, which was a big deal, as he wrote most of the songs on this first record with Marky Smith, and Yvonne Paulette quit as well. So I wrote they get a guy named Mike Lee to fill on drums, but at this point there is no they. It's just Marky Smith is all that's left. The entire band has left him.
Oh, yeah.
Mark Riley is still in the band. The child.
But does he actually play an instrument at this point?
He plays bass.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mike takes over on drums, and Mark Riley, the 16-year-old, gets promoted to guitar. And Mark Riley calls up two of his friends, also children, who he used to play with, 17-year-old Craig Scanlon on guitar, and 18-year-old Steve
Craigness.
Hanley. I know I'm harking on about the age here of the band, and Marky Smith is only in his early 20s at this point, but it just seems to me to be concerning that these children are hanging out with this unhinged alcoholic. They were frequently turned away from playing shows because many members of the band were too young to be in pubs. Steve Hanley is especially touted as an intrinsic part of the band and praised as one of the great rock bassists of all time.
I think that particularly for this period of the band, he's probably more important to the sound of the band than Marky.
Marky agrees with you. In an exceptionally rare act of awareness of other people around himself, Marky Smith said of Steve's bass playing that it is, quote, the most original aspect of the Fall. I don't have to tell him what to play. He just knows. He is the Fall sound.
Yeah, I mean, Marky is unique, but he's not...
If you just have him without that music behind it, it's nothing.
It's nothing, yeah. Like,
The group puts out their second record, number 2, Dragnet.
this is pretty bad. I think this is worse.
This was recorded at Cargo Studios in Manchester. The studio was so distraught by how the album sounds that they asked to not have their name printed anywhere on the album as they didn't want to be associated with it and have it potentially hurt their business.
That's rough. There's a type of song that the Fall do where Marky rambles over an endless guitar solo that they get better at.
That's not here.
I think A Figure Walks might be. I'm updating the document now. That's my yuck icky song. Ooh. I found it pretty intolerable. It just kind of goes on and on. It's the production is. I feel like the Fall have this reputation for like it's poorly produced. That is unfair. I think a lot of their music is very competently produced and even like sounds the way it does deliberately. I think that this just sounds bad. I don't think that there was any thought that went into how it was going to sound at all.
Figure walks behind you, shadow walks behind you, and if they grabs my coattail, I will turn and hit. It may remove the beds, keeping my eyes open. And a figure walks behind you, shadow walks behind you.
So we're now in the 1980s.
Yeah.
Mike Lee quits the band, the drummer, in the spring, basically saying that it was financially untenable to be in the Fall. You couldn't make a living being in this band. They get bassist Steve Hanley's little brother Paul to hop on drums. He is also 16 years old at this time. In the documentary, The Wonderful and Frightening World of Marky Smith, they said, quote, "You wouldn't have fun at a Fall gig. You just did what you were told." That's the Hanley brothers who were saying that.
Nice.
Marky Smith's sister, Suzanne, painted the album cover for their third record entitled Grotesque After the Gram. That is grotesque, as in the word grotesque, in parentheses, the words after the gram, Gramme, end parentheses. A lot of these album titles seem to be completely unintelligible and are often strewn with misspellings and other confounding syntax.
One of their best.
Okay.
I gave this one a 9. I think this is a huge step forward in their sound. I think it actually sounds the way it does on purpose. I hear lots of little production techniques. It reminds me of Captain Beefheart at times, particularly CNC Mithering reminds me a little bit of like Trout Mask Replica. So does
which is famously one of the most challenging albums to listen to,
but a really good one. And
I just want the listeners to have their expectations tempered here. That this is difficult music.
Yes, it's also. I think that there's obviously lots of anger on the first two albums because they're punk rock. So there's just kind of like, that's just part of the whole thing. He sounds furious to me on so many of these songs.
5 wacky English proletariat idiots. Californians always think of sex or think of death. 500 girl deaths. A Mexico revenge, it's stolen land. They really get off on. Don't hurt me, please. Rapists fill the TVs. And the secret of their lives is S.E.
CNC Mithering, which seems to be about a meeting with Herb Alpert. That he totally screwed up, probably got drunk and made a fool of himself in front of Herb Alpert.
I wish I was there for that, or I wish
know.
it was recorded.
Yeah, I find it to be a very compelling, very angry album, but it refers to that all as grotesquerie. Like it's not necessarily presenting this as an honorable way to behave.
Sure.
I like that.
He has some self-awareness. That I think he knows he's not a good guy.
Yeah. Or he at least knows when he's not being a good guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Also produced by the great Mayo Thompson,
Yes.
not Per Ubu.
Yeah. Big guy for you.
Oh yeah, Baraboo's probably my favorite band.
Now, I will note that, at least on streaming services, this is the album with their kind of big hit, Totally Wired.
Which went all the way up to #1 on the UK indie chart.
Sick.
That's big.
I drank a jar of coffee, and then I took some of these, and I'm totally wired. Totally wired. I'm totally wired. I'm totally wired.
There is a version of this, kind of like a demo recorded by that Marky Smith was really trying to get on the record. I found it, and you just play it for the. I just found it interesting.
You got it.
I'm totally wired. I'm absolutely batty. I've gone off the rails and I'm crazy. I'm crazy. I'm totally insane in the head. I'm a little crazy, man. Play. I'm totally, absolutely batty.
So did you do this in your bedroom? Because it sounds like you're whispering.
No, that was the fall. That was recorded.
Got it. This record was released and produced by Rough Trade Records. They funded the production of it. Marky Smith didn't like it, and he didn't like Rough Trade Records, and he leaves the label at this point. He will be back, but just one of the many falling outs he has with everyone all the time. I think anytime people like him, he dislikes the work.
That makes him annoying.
Yeah.
He doesn't like that. I think that makes sense.
He is someone who clearly pines so much to be successful and then resents it whenever it comes his way.
Sure.
In 81, the band wanted to tour the USA to promote an EP called Slates. They couldn't do that with Paul Hanley because he was too young to play in any of the clubs that they were booking. So they asked Carl Burns to come back to the band, and he does. After a pretty nasty falling out. I was poised to be pissed off on Paul's behalf, but it turns out that Marky Smith kept both drummers after the tour. So there is a time period where there are multiple drummers of the fall.
I think for many people, that's the lineup.
You got the Hanley brothers, you got the two drummers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love Slates, by the way. Did you guys listen? You didn't?
I sure did.
What did you think?
But we don't talk about it. For me, that is much more accessible than the previous 3 full-length records.
Yeah.
This, for me, is a turning point for them. And I think could have been pretty successful in the States had it been properly promoted. Well, in 1982, their 4th record, Hex Induction Hour, is released on March 8th. Not very fall of them to put out an album in the spring, is it?
I suppose not.
This comes out on Camera Records, Camera with a K. For me, this is where Dorothy enters Oz. The album is qualitatively different from all of their previous 3. The band takes the show on the road, including Down Under to Australia, where Marky Smith and Mark Riley, the child, get into a fist fight, which resulted in Mark Riley being fired from the band. He would later write a song called Jumper Clown with his band The Creepers to chronicle this story, making fun of Marky Smith's sense of fashion all the while.
I listened to this album on Election Day.
Which year?
This year.
Okay.
This past year. And I remembered liking it a lot. So I was like, oh, yeah, I get to listen to what is, objectively one of their better albums. And that 2-drummer sound is huge. There's just this kind of like, during some of the jammier portions, because the fall can get a little jammy, the 2 drummers just seem to both kind of be doing this kind of like endless rolling thing, particularly on the song The Classical.
Right.
The drums and the second half just kind of seem to never not be climaxing in this really exciting way.
Yeah.
That is probably more palatable to an average listener, like a normal person who's not going to get into like cheesy punk rock.
Sure.
That song, I think, would be a great first song to play if not for some of the language in the first half of the song, which I do not approve of.
Yeah, there's a lot of racial and
There's some slurs on this album.
There's a lot
that
of
make it
slurs
hard
in
to
this.
recommend.
For sure. And I don't know if Marky Smith ever came to regret it.
No, I think that some artists, particularly in this period, used slurs in a at least pseudo-intellectual way that is defensible if you accept that that's how people talked back then.
Sure.
And I think that he's not quite clearing even that bar.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they are just unpleasant to hear him say.
For sure. And I think if he were ever to defend himself, he'd say, well, they're characters. But this is not like a fully fleshed out character a la
No.
Randy Newman in Rednecks, where
Sure.
he is saying the N-word explicitly from the villain's perspective. You know,
No.
like this is just kind of casually tossing around like a Frisbee. And to me, it seems very lazy.
I believe that Marky would say the N-word exactly like he does in this song in conversation. There's no doubt in my mind, and I don't like it. That bums me out. Ruins what could be their best song. I really enjoyed riding through a subway tunnel, having just cast my vote for Kamala Harris, and getting that creeping feeling like things were not gonna go my way. Listening
And they didn't.
listening to Marky moan, "Who makes the Nazis?" It really, I think that was the moment when I knew who was gonna win. As I stared out the window into the black void.
Well, just 6 months after their fourth record, they put out another full-length album entitled Room to Live. To me, it makes a lot of sense that this was made just 6 months after. It does feel like the cutting room floor straps.
Sure, the cover is almost identical.
They love repetition. You get a lot of that on here. I found that boring.
Yeah, I find this one to be a step down. I don't think it's as good as the previous.
Yep.
Joker Hysterical Face, I think, is a fun song. I can hear that's again a phrase. Whenever I think about the Joker from the Batmans,
Yeah. Do you want to know how he got these scars?
that guy. Mm-hmm. How?
He smiled too much.
And there's no cure, so find a case for it. There's no cure, so find a case for it. Let's face it, you don't make the same mistake twice. Let's face it, you don't make the same mistake twice. Joker, hysterical face.
The band tours the U.S. without their manager because Marky Smith dumps their manager, Kay Carroll, professionally and romantically. The bulldog I was telling you about, she's now out of the picture. And Marky Smith immediately starts dating an American he meets on tour, one Laura Elise Salinger, better known as Brix Smith. Brix Smith gets her name from The Guns of Brixton by The Clash.
Oh, that's cool.
She joins the band on guitar. She's from Los Angeles, Chicago. She kind of bops between the two cities. And she saw them on tour and said she liked the band but couldn't understand the words, as in she literally couldn't make out what he was saying.
I don't think that's unusual for an American.
Not for an American. I think for the Fall, I think it is very difficult to decipher what he is saying oftentimes.
Sure. I think Mancunians could probably have a pretty easy time with it.
She does join the band, and her influence is so pronounced that in terms of transition and sound and songwriting, the Fall's career is oftentimes split up into 3 time periods: pre-Brix, Brix, and post-Brix. There are more hooks and more conventional songwriting during Brix's time with the band. It has been remarked upon that she looked very glamorous, as she had platinum blonde hair and ascribed to high fashion, whereas the Fall looked and were a bunch of working class guys. They made more of an effort when she was in the group. This was a period under which the Fall became somewhat palatable in the UK, and they get songs on the charts as high as 30 with There's a Ghost in My House in 1987.
A cover.
Yeah.
Joe, you like sports?
Yeah.
And we're back. Welcome back to our movie segment where we talk about movies. We're doing a part 1 and a part 2 today. We watched 2 movies. We're going to do the second one later.
Yeah.
What movie did we watch?
Our last guests on the Radiohead episode, Olivia and Justin, recommended a movie each for us to watch. The first of which being
Nosferatu.
Nosferatu.
The original.
The original.
1922.
I've seen it.
It was supposed to be a silent movie. And I went in expecting silence. And some joker, the entire time, played the organ.
I said, well, where the heck is SpongeBob?
He's not even in it for very long at all.
He's not in it for any
Just
of it.
a couple minutes.
And I was watching, I'm like, what the heck? So I give it, I'm sorry to say this, 2 out of 10. More SpongeBob?
Yeah, it's probably the worst SpongeBob movie.
Yeah, seriously. We'll be back.
Yeah.
This is psychotic. In 1983, Mark E. Smith and Brix get married on July 19th. And they celebrate by putting out their 6th record, Perverted by Language, which comes out in December of 1983.
I think Garden is some of Marky Smith's best lyrics.
Okay.
I think he has a tendency to kind of write about gripes. Kind of just sort of like probably something he was watching on TV that got on his nerves. Seems to me to be one of his biggest sources of inspiration.
People he seems at the pub.
Sure, that
spend
too.
a lot of time there.
Yeah, I feel like he was either at the pub drinking or at home afterward watching TV. Seems to be the main 2 things that he was inspired by to me. But The Garden, I think, is a song about a little bit the idea of like the Garden of Eden and Christianity, and has some kind of big ideas in it.
Shotgun! Best phones, advertise, release.
I love Eat Yourself Fitter. I really like when Marky talks about the subject of like health. I think that he resented people who put effort into being healthy and expected others to do the same.
Eat Yourself Fitter is my yuck icky song.
Oh no, I love that song.
It's more so the delivery than anything else. He could be saying some of the most profound things that I agree with in this song, but in the cadence and delivery and kind of snarling he is doing through this, I hate it.
I met a hero of mine. I shook his hand. I trapped in the door. Mother fool, I'll tell ya. Charmed to meet ya. Eat yourself better. Up the stairs, mister. Eat yourself better.
Yeah, I feel like it's an indictment of like diet culture and this idea of like, oh, if you just do what I say, you'd be better.
Again, I agree with that, and I think for 1983, kind of a remarkable idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is. I think there's elements of that in there, but he also isn't really like criticizing an industry. He's not really taking anything down. It's more just like
It's impressionistic. I'm doing. There's a lot of me. There's a lot of
You're giving
goodwill
it a
on
lot
my
of
part.
credit, I think.
For a person that's probably not a very good person.
Sure. And I do see how it could be read that way. To me, there's just not enough specifics there for me to really give him credit for what is happening in this song.
Yeah.
I will say that this record held my lyric of the day
Oh.
on Tempo House. The lyric would be, and I quote, Winston Churchill had a speech impediment. And look what he did. Erased half of London.
I also recorded that lyric as I don't have a lot of lyrics written down. That's a great line.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people take Winston Churchill to task.
I would say a little messed up. I think if we were to try to ascribe who erased half of London, that would have been Adolf Hitler
Sure.
during the Battle of the Blitz. I don't think it was necessarily Winston Churchill's fault, per se. I think he was in charge when it happened.
Sure. I think we give Winston Churchill a lot of credit for not a lot of work.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I will say he did not surrender to the Nazis when everyone else did.
That's wow. Well, he cleared that bar.
Yeah. Hey, that's one that France and Poland and Czechoslovakia can't.
That's true.
Have done. 1984. 1984.
Wow.
George Orwell saw that year coming. He knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. He looked at his calendar and he said, sheesh.
I bet between 83 and 85. The Wonderful and Frightening World of the Fall is released, their 7th album. I think it's one of their best. I think this album is their highest production value yet. It's fast right out of the gate, which is good for me. I like the fall when they're fast.
Is that Lay of the Land?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great track.
And the lyrics and delivery, I found difficult, as always.
Sure.
Do
Do you mean understanding them or even what they are?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I will say, if you want to have a chance of enjoying the fall, I think it is helpful to have the lyrics pulled up while you are listening to them.
Eldritch house with green moss, sound of ordinary on the waves, tiles drip from its roof, home secretary at the window.
I do think that he changed his delivery a little bit for this album too.
Yeah.
He slowed down a little bit. I don't remember
more
what songs.
lyrical.
There's a couple that reminded me of Jarvis Cocker.
I wish, and Joe, this has been a point of contention between you and I like when people sing rather than speak in songs.
I think he's singing in almost every one of their songs.
You and I have a different definition of what that is. But in Steven's song, I think he is doing what I consider to be singing or something closer to it. And I think it really works.
It does.
It really
That's a great one.
Chaps my buns that he doesn't do this more often. Because I that like makes the song for me. And it's so close. And he just doesn't repeat this. And that's difficult for me.
I like that he has a variety of vocal deliveries. And it keeps a band that could very easily be very samey. It kind of pushes them into a more, it's one of the elements of variety in a very repetitious,
I wish this would be
samey band.
incorporated more because I think he speaks so much and so often that this would add more variety if he did it more often.
That's probably right.
Because our entire album's with not a lick of vocal melody.
Agree to disagree. I think every song has a vocal melody that makes them very catchy and easy to remember.
Walks past rivers and wide leaves I'll tell you of the rats in this world, falling in place with the face, men coming between each other for the sake of a 2 million urge. It is worth $5 London and custom on.
So many of these songs, while listening to it, I'm like, how does he do these live? How did he do these live? Because I would not be able to keep the order of any of this right.
We're getting ahead of this, but no. I watched a video of them, I want to say from like the early 2000s. He's hunched over the floor where he comes out. He has a big pile of papers, and he starts throwing them all around the floor. And then when they get to the song, he has to kind of like dig around the floor, and he's got the microphone in his hand until he finds the lyric sheet, and he reads the lyrics into the microphone.
So that's to say he didn't memorize them. No. This is like a pageant.
There's long periods of music where he's just digging through papers.
A testament to his band for being able to hold that down while this guy is combing through his homework.
And it's very entertaining, I will say. It sounds like a mistake, but I do think there's an element of showbiz to it, a little bit of a wink.
It is after this record that Paul Hanley quits playing drums for the band. One of the few people who is able to demonstrably say, I quit, instead of you're fired.
Yeah. And what a loss.
Big loss. And I think it was hard for Steve, too, to be without his brother, who he had been with for so long through all this.
Yeah.
1985, the very next year, they put out a new album, This Nation's Saving Grace.
This is the one I would recommend to someone that's just a more casual music listener. Like, what's the fall like?
Sure.
I think this is a great entry point into what they sound like.
I should say that fellow Carl Burns, who is one of the two drummers, quits after this one as well.
Yeah.
So while we like whatever came out of this, there seemed to be a lot of hostilities in the band and people were dropping like flies.
Yeah. And I could see, especially for the musicians, that this record feels much like Grotesque, sounds like them experimenting in the studio and changing their sound. I think this record also kind of is them experimenting in the studio and changing their sound.
Yeah.
Losing, I think, Paul,
Which again is reducing them to one drummer now.
Yeah, they obviously had to change their sound, and I don't know that there was a lot of forethought in that. But I think that you get great songs out of that, like "L.A."
Yeah,
I would put
love LA
on the short list for my yummy songs. I would put "L.A." High on that list. You know, the Santa Monica Boulevard.
We love it.
I think that song very much is, again, back to Damon Albarn. That sounds like Gorillaz to me a little bit.
Yeah.
I think this record is very psychedelic. I think songs like Mansion are very psychedelic. I think Spoiled Victorian Child is kind of psychedelic.
I have a hard time with the psychedelic aspect because I just don't really care for psychedelic music. I think it is well done musically, but I like their punk days a lot better.
Yeah.
But if you like psychedelic music, this is definitely the one to start with.
This album is home to my yummy song.
Lay it on us.
My New House.
Okay. This song's just insane.
One of my favorite songs of all time. It was hard to pick a yummy song. This one cuts through because, again, I talked before, there's certain lines of his that just run through my head. They just run through my head.
Dr. Freud.
Exactly.
Freud, you would say.
Him screaming, "My new house. Have you seen my new house?" Just, I think about it all the time. Sometimes I see a house and I think house, and then I think my new house, and I hear him scout, "Have you seen?" He doesn't always sound very happy to me. And
Usually not.
And I like when he's happy. That actually delights me when he sounds like he's a happy guy. And he just seems so excited to show off his new house to me.
Carl, the remaining drummer, quits the band after this album, and he is replaced by Simon Wollstonecraft, who will stay with the band for over a decade, making him one of the longest-serving members of the Fall. And it marks a shift in their sound to something less rigid and with more of a groove, kind of laying into that sort of psychedelic thing, I think.
Each episode, we like to highlight the up-and-coming work of a discography-developing diva. Today, that is Rodeo Bible Camp. Rodeo Bible Camp is a musical project led by Joe, the guy you've been listening to this entire episode. Rodeo Bible Camp, of course, features Joe Glennon, but also musicians who hail from and around the Philadelphia area. It is now time to imagine all the people with Rodeo Bible Camp and their track. I can't believe I have to say this, but it is the title of the song. Their track, Fuck Bomb. First artist to ever make me swear while saying the title of their song. Good work, Joe. You can hear more from Rodeo Bible Camp. Listen to a playlist of our favorite The Fall songs, visit our shop and social media pages, contact us, view our citations, and so much more by using the links in this episode's show notes.
It's 1986. Marky Smith writes a play entitled He Luciani about Pope John Paul I, who led the Holy Roman Catholic Church for 34 days in 1978 until he died of a heart attack.
Okay.
Then they put out their 9th album, Bend Sinister.
This is a very good album.
You like this one?
I wouldn't rate it as high as their previous run.
Okay.
But I think UK 80s, 90s is a pretty... that's pretty high up there for me when I think of fall songs. I think it's a very cool sound. Definitely pushes forward the sound from the last album in a cool way. I think this record is a lot more samey than they've been recently. Like there's kind of a sound to it that kind of runs through the whole thing. It's a little more rockabilly than they'd been in a while, in a way that I find very cool. I think like the rockabilly revival thing was happening, like Stray Cats or whatever.
Right.
But I think this is maybe a little more hip than that. I think they find a way to make it sound modern instead of sounding like a throwback in a cool way.
Cigarettes, bikes, gin, cigarettes, whiskey.
1987, I have no notes for the fall, which is rare because they put out usually 1 to 2 albums a year. They're an exceptionally prolific band, if you couldn't tell by now. And it's not until 1988 that we hear from them again, where they put out their 10th record, The Friends Experiment, spelled F-R-E-N-Z. The album cover kind of looks like a promo photo for the television show Friends, which wouldn't come out for another 6 years. Clearly, David Crane and Marta Kaufman were big Fall fans.
Well, I guess they had to do a couple more experiments. They had to refine the hypothesis.
How are they going to do Victoria like that?
You don't like it?
I love Victoria by the Kinks. I like the music video. Have you seen the music video?
No.
He's in like
It's like they
Victorian
do the
sort
clothes.
of garb and stuff.
Kind of do
yeah.
like an Adamant thing.
Yeah.
Victoria
Yeah.
is my yummy yummy song.
Do you like the Kinks version? Do you know the Kinks version?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the Kinks a lot. And I
But
like
this is just as good for you?
No.
For me, it sounds like someone drunkenly doing the Kinks karaoke. And that's probably what it is.
Yeah. I think the band is killing it.
Spot on.
Yeah,
They're nailing
killing it.
Again, all of my issues with the fall lie almost purely within Marky Smith. It seldom has anything to do with the musicians in the band.
I will die. May the song never said.
I think this record, they become more relatable than they've been.
It is statistically kind of the album where people find them the coolest, and they are super popular at this point in 88.
Yeah. I think like previously, he either seems like, pardon my language, a jerk off,
Yo,
or like a...
we have babies.
We
that
say
listen to
jerk
this
on
show.
here.
Sorry. He seems like someone that is very cool and smart in a kind of like, I can't relate to that kind of way. I think sometimes he does affect that character very successfully. But on this record, there's stuff like Carry a Bag Man, which just seems to be about like being a man who has a bag. And I don't think there's much more to it than, and I bring a bag to work every day, and I know that that's a type of guy.
You are a bagman.
Not everybody's a carry a bag man. You know, he sings about how he doesn't have a lot of friends. And like, you know, he's a guy in his 30s now. He's probably, you know, he's getting older. He doesn't have as many friends as when he was younger.
He's got to find his Chandler.
Yeah, he doesn't have a Bing.
I think anyone just calls him Bing. And I do think the music videos genuinely help him. Marky Smith is a handsome fellow.
He won't be for much longer.
No. But before the alcohol ruins his body and gives him he gets the gin blossoms and
Has
everything.
really deep ridges on the forehead. He
Yeah.
gets kind of a Mo forehead.
Right.
later. in
I
life.
think he is genuinely like a cute guy. You
Yes.
know? A second album by The Fall comes out this year. I Am Curious Orange, which is a ballet collaboration between Michael Clark, a ballet instructor, and The Fall. Marky Smith remarked upon how difficult it was to have a schedule during this time period because this is a live production that is being done. The
Right.
Fall did the music for this ballet piece.
They would perform it live.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And Marky Smith literally is on record being like, I had to eat at a certain time and I had to wake up. He's not even complaining that it's too early. It's just that his day was regimented at all.
Sure.
Which presumably it never was before this, as he was a 16-year-old squatting in an apartment with his girlfriend.
He probably wasn't very punctual at his job at the factory, you don't think?
So I think this was a very difficult time for him. I find the album oppressive, and I wonder if that is not reflected in how he felt about his period of life here.
Yeah. Well, apparently he wrote significant portions of every song on a Fall album up until this point. And apparently a lot of this is Bricks and not so much Marky, which is pretty unusual. And unfortunately, part of why I know that is I was reading that he did not put her name on those songs. The songs are either Marky and The Fall or they're Marky.
Yeah.
And he didn't really credit her for her work on this.
Well, that might explain why the following year, in 1989, Bricks leaves both Marky Smith in the relationship as well as the band.
Couldn't blame her.
This is a tough year for Marky Smith because A, he was left, which doesn't seem to happen to him often. He seemed to, up to this point, typically be the dumper rather than the dumpy. 1989 is also the year that Jack Smith, Marky's father, dies of a heart attack. His dad was a World War II father and everything. I don't get the sense that there was a ton of warmth and love there, but enough to make him sort of depressed. He was really bummed out when his dad died.
I think sometimes that kind of relationship can lead to a need for closure.
For sure. For sure. Well, he doesn't get it because his dad's dead.
Exactly.
In 1990, they put out their 12th record, Extricate. Martin Brahma comes back on guitar. Their original guitarist is back. Just for this album before he is fired, along with Marcia Schofield, who has been playing keyboards with the group for the past couple of years, not typically just live, not really on the albums. So they both get the boot pretty much as soon as they come on for this record.
Which is a bummer. There's some great guitar on this record.
Yeah, I think Bill Is Dead is a great example
and one
that.
of my favorite songs.
Yeah.
Again, I like when he's happy. I think that song has some great lyrics and actually strikes me as very personal and honest, which is rare for Marky.
These are the greatest times of my life. These are the biggest times of my life. These are the greatest times of my life. These are the biggest times.
Extricate could also be known as the one where Marky Smith starts taking copious amounts of speed, like habitually, not just as a fun, like, I'm out partying tonight.
So you're saying he was romanticizing his dangerous lifestyle? Yeah.
And like his daily lifestyle, he's taking speed and drinking alcohol. So uppers and downers all day. And this is where the media starts to turn against Mark. He was viewed as a genius. That is a word that you see in so many press releases about the Fall in the early to mid 80s. That his lyrics are genius, the way he composes this band. He's like a mad scientist. You can't keep up with him. At this point, the media starts to say, no, he's just an asshole. Like, Marky Smith is a degenerate. He's an alcoholic. He's out of his mind, and it's his own fault.
I read a great interview, I think it's from around this time, with Marky, Nick Cave, and Shane McGowan.
There's a great picture of this interview.
And, man, you get the impression that either Marky is the smartest guy in the room and takes some umbrage with being presented this, like, it's you and your fellow geniuses, and can we get you guys to say some smart stuff? And he just seems to really want to sabotage the whole thing and just be annoying and rude to everybody and pick fights for no reason. And it's very unpleasant.
And he is next to some people who I think are absolutely geniuses.
Sure. And they're all troubled.
Yeah.
But boy, does he come off as the biggest, to seem to really be a person with a problem.
Sure.
A personality
I wonder if that
disorder.
was an inferiority sort of thing, because he later on in life will brag about never having learned to play an instrument, doesn't know anything
Which isn't
about
true. He
music
plays
theory.
guitar on lots of their
Yeah,
music. It's kind of
yeah, yeah.
annoying when people do that.
But then he claims he doesn't know anything, and it's just like, almost like manifested, a divine manifestation of his skills and everything. And
yeah, very
it's
annoying.
just annoying.
He's annoying.
And in turn, Marky Smith becomes much more sour and coarse and mean to journalists and venue managers and other musicians. So he's not really doing himself any favors here at all.
No.
I understand he had a tough year in '89, but he is just making a rough go of it. Marky Smith, salves his woes here by getting married the very next year. He marries basically the manager of their fan club, one Saffron Pryor. And together they put out their 13th record, Shift Work. I think that this is one of their strongest efforts.
Agree.
Especially musically.
They kind of have changed up their sound a little bit since like that Ben Sinister record, which kind of feels like they were stripping things back for a while. Now I feel like they've been building things up. And this record kind of is like all of the stuff they've been building up kind of like all at once. They kind of like have come up with a new sound, and they can just do it very casually and easily. And it's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's very exciting music in the way that they were exciting in the early 80s.
Wildly, though, the band's song Hip Priest is used on the soundtrack for The Silence of the Lambs.
Small brown bottles since I was so long, 'cause I'm a hip priest, 'cause I'm a hip priest. People only need me when they're down I've got to see, 'cause I'm a hip priest.
1992, a fellow named Dave Bush, no relation, joins on the keys. He remains with the band for a few records and really shapes the sound, making it far more electronic. It is in this year that they put out their 14th album, Code Selfish. It contains the song Free Range, which makes it up to 40 on the UK charts, the highest position of the decade.
I'm not super into their techno-y the stuff on this.
Yeah, and I think the next few years we can kind of clump together. The next few albums sound very similar to me.
Yeah, I feel like they're doing like a sci-fi thing. There's like the song that kind of references Twilight Zone, Time Enough at Last. Just feels like he's maybe running out of stuff to talk about a little bit.
This is now their 14th record.
They're just talking about Two-Face from Batman. Yeah. I don't know.
Once you get to Guy with a Bag as an idea for a song,
That's a great song, though.
but you're scraping the bottom of the
You're
barrel
running out of
ideas.
you're running out of stuff to
Yeah.
talk about. You're right.
1993, we get their 15th record, the Infotainment Scan. There's
Very
some
TV,
cool drum beats on
oriented.
it. Yeah,
I like this record. Yeah,
cool drum beats.
I think this is another example of them being kind of self-referential. I think when someone when he sings, "I do not like your tone. It has an ephemeral whinging aspect." I think that might be maybe a little bit looking in the mirror.
Sure. It only took him 15 albums to realize.
Yeah. I wanted to shout out that Infotainment Scam has a cover of a Sister Sledge song, maybe their most
Wild,
bizarre cover
but
yet.
Wild.
They usually cover like garage rock music, you know?
Songs that you think they would like.
Yeah.
But
I was the museum, caught in a trap, no looking back, let my head inside trauma, break out refurbishment, of folks in the highway, I heard a voice say,
1994, we get Middle Class Revolt, their 16th record. I like the music on this one a whole lot. I think for me, it's one of their best music records.
I think I agree with that.
I think with this whole Dave Bush synthesizer thing, this is where they really dial that in, and they are able to make the most of the lineup that they have.
I agree with that. Another bizarre song to cover in the other direction, War, is a cover of a song by a band called Henry Cow
I saw
in
that. I'd
collaboration
never
with
heard of it
Slap
before.
Happy.
Yeah.
Really good band. I would say back to their Captain Beefheart roots, very like experimental music. I think also featuring a member of Per Ubu, by the way, Chris Cutler, who is credited on the original as playing the radio.
Insufferable.
So that's just, pretty far removed from Sister Sledge is all.
Speaking of going back to their old sound, Marky Smith goes back to his old ways because in 1995, Marky Smith and Saffron Pryor divorce, and Brick Smith comes back to the band for number 17, Cerebral Caustic. She said that she would keep on living in LA, but fly out to the UK whenever they needed. I don't think her and Marky are like really together.
It seems like they're not.
Yeah, I think it's a professional thing. She ends up writing about half of this album. I really love Feeling Numb, and I like the song entitled Feeling Numb.
I think that this record has better songwriting than some of their previous works,
Again, Brick Smith is back.
but the production is pretty bad.
Yeah.
In a way that, again, I don't know that it's on purpose. I think I read somewhere that Marky did a pass on the vocals with every intention of coming back later in the production cycle and doing more takes and really nailing his lines or whatever, which might fly in the face of his image as a vocalist. The whole thing really does to me sound like it's recorded into a pretty cheap microphone right up in front of his face as he's reading the lyrics in a way that even more than usual.
I could see him thinking that's cool. And being
And then
like,
later
"Keep that."
deciding I don't like it,
Yeah.
but then pretending that he never wanted to do it in the first place.
Yeah, he's
I know
terrible.
what you mean.
He's terrible.
I know what you mean.
So Marky Smith fires Dave Bush basically as soon as the album comes out. Dave Bush goes on to join Elastica almost immediately after their mega hit Connection.
Oh, okay.
So he wasn't there for it, but he got to enjoy the tour and
Yeah.
success of that band afterwards, which is probably
Got to be better than touring. Yeah.
Yeah. Marky Smith then fires guitarist Craig Scanlon, that guy who was in the band for about 2 decades.
No kidding.
This is one of the few firings that Marky Smith basically said, I messed up. I shouldn't have done this.
Yeah, I mean, the guy was pretty...
And it seems like almost right after that he expresses
Even more
remorse,
unusual,
but
right? Like, I
not
don't think
to
he was...
Scanlon.
He was pretty angry at Paul, right, when he did it, but then...
Yeah. Well, in 96, they put out their 18th record. Bricks recorded on this one as well, but then quit right after. So she was with the band for 2 albums.
Okay.
Canadian musician Julia Nagel was brought on this record to record and take over for Dave Bush and Craig Scanlon. So she's playing keys and guitar. You got kind of a Kim Deal-esque sort of vocal presentation on Spine Track, which I like.
That's good.
I wish they used Julia more in that capacity.
There's a schizophrenic. Other half is bullshit. His sidekick.
I think this album was obviously better produced than the one before it. I also think that you can really hear them trying in a way that maybe they try to obscure how much they're trying usually. I think this one, they really feels like they're like, check this out. Like, it's very excited. It's very like, there's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of like enthusiasm that I find very charming. I mean, Ballard, of Jay Drummer, kind of has like a bolero beat.
Yeah.
It's like, that's pretty different for them. Like, there's usually like a pretty straight ahead 4/4 beat on almost every one of their songs.
We'll see. I think their drummer preferred that, and then I think all these experimentations, he doesn't like it, as we'll see.
Yeah. This is another example where I wrote down the lyrics. I'm just going to read it and see what it does for us here. Men, boys, and girls, don't ever follow the path of being hard and tough when your heart is soft. That's kind of like a haiku.
I guess so. Men, boys, and girls.
Men,
Notably,
boys, and
women
girls
are not allowed in.
No, just boys and girls and men. It sounds like something you'd read at a fortune cookie. Maybe he did.
Well, in 97, for their 19th album, Levitate, the drum and bass sound changes a whole lot, and a lot of people didn't like it, including drummer Simon Wollstonecraft, who quits after the album is being recorded. He didn't even wait for it to come out. And once again, Carl Burns is called up, and they say, will you play drums for us? And he does. Stephen Wells wrote in NME about this album, if you never heard The Fall, then Levitate will either be the best or worst record you've ever heard.
I don't like this one.
No.
This is pretty low on the list for me. I'm a big fan of their cover of I'm a Mummy. I think that's just some good, clean fun. I really enjoy it, very sincerely.
born 1,959 years ago.
1998, Marquis Smith's alcoholism had really been ramping up throughout the back half of the 90s here. It culminates in a blowout during a show in April of 1998, which you can watch the entirety of on YouTube, where Marquis Smith screams at his band on stage, unplugs their instruments, and shoves a bunch of the drums over. The band mostly quit that night, including Steve Hanley, who had been the bassist for 19 years at this point. Carl Burns quits as well, leaving them drumless again. This is like his fourth time quitting the band. And a fellow named Tommy Crooks, who was playing guitar for them at the time, he also leaves. Carl and Marquis Smith actually got into a physical fight with each other on the stage, which you can see. Julia Nagel stands by him, which is perplexing and sad, as the day after this show, Marquis Smith was arrested for assaulting Julia in a hotel room. And she stays with the band and him after that. Marquis Smith puts out a solo record, because we all needed that, a spoken word album, totally different from the rest of the fall, called The Post Nearly Man. 1999, Marquis Smith and Julia Nagel would put out 2 albums together as the sole members of The Fall, their 20th and 21st records, respectively, The Marshall Suite and The Unutterable.
I love The Marshall Suite.
Please go on. I'm going to ice my hand really quick.
I think that it's so experimental, and that's true about a lot of their music, but I think that the experiments on this one are more fun. The drum sound is like huge and really cool. There's orchestra. There's like some just kind of noisy sound collage-y kind of stuff towards the second half that's pretty successful. Great cover of an old, I guess, rockabilly garage rock song called F. Olden Money that I adore. Yeah, I think Young Nev's Antidotes sounds like something that a cool hip band would put out today. You know, I just think that it's like sonically more exciting than a lot of their other music, and just it's one of my favorites.
I wanted to hear her sing so badly on it. And when I saw that in the research, I was like, oh, it's just the two of them. Surely she has sung on this. And she doesn't at all.
No.
Speaking of cool sound effects, Joe, do you like sports?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And we're back.
Welcome back to the second movie review of this episode. And we're talking about the first Fast and Furious.
You ever seen it?
On TV in pieces.
Yeah. These cars,
They're so fast.
they go so...
It's insane.
Joe,
It's-
if you watch it again, I want you to pay attention to how fast these
Yeah.
cars go.
dude, the NOS on these cars they're working overtime.
Every car's got NOS.
Every car's got NOS.
It's ludicrous
These
in
are
the first one.
Nazis.
Nas. It's Omatic out here. Some lines I chose. Two characters. This guy named Vince and this guy named Brian. Vince goes, "Why don't you try Fat Burger from now on? You can get yourself a cheese and fries for $2.95." Then yells the F slur. And then Brian goes, "I like the tuna here." And Vince goes, "Bull crap, a-hole. No one likes the tuna here." And Brian says, "Yeah, well, I do." And then they get slammed into a car.
I mean, it's such a fast slamming
Yeah.
into the car.
Also, Dom, played by Vin Diesel, says, "You almost had me? You never had me. You never had your car. Granny shifting, not double clutching like you should.
Yeah.
You're lucky that 100 shot of Nas didn't blow the welds on the intake."
You know how you have a car? You know how you drive it? I mean, these
These
guys are going fast.
You're never going to want to drive your car again.
You know where they lose me? These guys all seem pretty cool to me. They don't seem very upset.
I think they are very furious, but they're going so fast in their cars that it's having a chilling effect on them. But inside, ooh,
Stormy sea.
hot tamale. They're
Hot
furious.
tamale. Oh, yeah.
But I mean, the thing I have to say about this movie, and I know a lot of people have ragged on it, but I mean, these cars are fast, man. The accelerator is being used. I mean, in a big way. They are pressing.
I would
you got
say-
your accelerator and you got your brakes, and they are. I don't think they're even thinking about the brakes.
No.
And I don't know how they could one up this. I don't think they could top this. I mean,
don't think-
they are fast and they are furious. I don't think that there's any way to do this at in a greater capacity than they are.
I think they
don't-
race a helicopter in the second one.
What?
What?
I think it's
Hold
like a
on,
chase
Joe.
scene kind of a thing.
Hold on.
No.
It's not like a proper
no,
race.
No.
I'm.
You're thinking of a animation for sure. There's no way.
That couldn't happen.
That couldn't happen.
That couldn't happen.
I'm just telling you
happen.
guys.
It couldn't happen.
I think that happens. I think I
Wait,
saw
what's the
it.
second one called?
Too Fast, Too Furious.
I thought they were going too fast in this one. You mean they go even faster?
I think they do.
What are we watching for April? But you know, you got those April showers coming up, so hunker down with us and watch.
Can I recommend something?
Yeah, sure.
La Strada by Fellini.
Join us on April 1st as April Fool's Day. This is no joke as we watch La Strada by Fellini.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
2001, Elena Palou, sometimes written as Eleni, sometimes even written as Eleanor, a German musician, marries Marky Smith. She seems to go by Elena these days, so that's what I'm going to call her. But also
That's how I
their
heard her
history,
reviewed.
You can see it spelled a multitude of ways. She plays keys for the band. That might strike you as odd because they already have a keyboard player. The only other member of the band, Julia Nagel, and she quits. She leaves the band, and Marky Smith says, all right, time to get a bunch of new people in the band. I think seeing that Elena was not going to be able to carry the way that Julia did, my heart really goes out to Julia.
Sounds like it was a pretty rough time.
She had a really hard time and then stuck by this guy and seemed to be like the creative input for the band. So
Yeah.
I feel very bad for her. But anyway, she's gone now. We got Spencer Burstwhile, contender for the most British name ever, on drums. Ed Blaney, and Ben Pritchard both take over on guitar, and Jim Watts plays bass. Together, they put out the 20-second fall record, Are You Are Missing Winner, spelled A-R-E-U, A-R-E, Missing Winner, which makes me feel like I'm having a stroke each time I try to read the
It's
title.
not easy to say.
You might see, of course, by now in 2001, why this band was not popular.
Yeah.
This is my least favorite record by the band by far.
It's pretty bad.
It feels like Marky Smith's not even into this one. I think the years of booze and drugs are really catching up to him by 2001, and you can hear it.
Totally. I think you talked before about how sometimes it just sounds like he's complaining into a microphone, I think. What is it? My ex-classmate's kid just simply sounds like a guy who has half a thought rambling into a microphone.
Which might be the most he can muster at this point based on what's left of his brain.
I do, speaking of what sounds like the product of a deteriorating brain, I really enjoy, I think it's a cover, Ibris Afro Man. I believe that's an Iggy Pop cover, right?
It's a tough one. Yeah.
I enjoy it. I think it's maybe the only worthwhile piece of music on the record. It's a very experimental, practically music concrete. It's just kind of, it sounds like he did 20 recordings of the song Ibris Afro Man. And then they kind of just they cut little clips and then just have them fade in and out over each other, playing at the same time sometimes.
It's challenging.
It's not casual listening.
Which the same can be said for their discography.
Sure, but even for them.
Just months of being into the band, Spencer Burswile quits and Dave Milner takes over on drums. 2002, Marky Smith, I think he just kind of is bummed out and didn't want to work with other people anymore. He puts out another solo record entitled Panda, Panzer, all with an exclamation point after it. He does come back the following year to put out the Falls album. The Real New Fall LP, parentheses, formerly Country on the Click. So the parenthetical title refers to an incident where they shared the album online under a different name with a different mix of the record. And that was Country on the Click.
Country on the
and
Click.
then they fixed it up and added some more stuff to it. And they're like, nah, we want this one. And they claimed it for their own. I really liked Mountain Energy.
I like this whole record.
It's one of their best, in my opinion.
I totally agree. I think Sparta FC is one of their more exciting songs. I think it's one of the most exciting songs about sports. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like a tribute to his home team, I guess. Yeah, very exciting. This is more of a rock record, straightforwardly, than they've done in a while.
And people seem to like this one, which is why pretty much as soon as it came out and started receiving popular reviews, Marky Smith starts firing people. He's right back to his old ways. Jim Watts gets fired from bass. He's replaced with Steve Trafford. Dave Milner, the drummer who just replaced the old drummer who just quit, was sent packing so that Spencer Burswile could come back. He put his sticky toffee pudding down long enough to come back to the band.
Didn't take long.
No. It's fine. But it was like, let's record this album. People like the album. You're out of the band.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it.
He's horrible.
Yeah.
He's horrible.
Yeah.
You know what song rocks? Mary Had a Little Lamb.
You said it. 4 more years.
4 more years. 4 more years. 4 more years.
Well, 2005, the BBC makes a documentary about the band, which I had referred to before, called The Fall, The Wonderful and Frightening World of Marky Smith. Marky Smith is basically unintelligible when he speaks. He starts really looking rough by 2005. It depicts The Fall playing their 24th Peel session, which if you're not familiar, it's with that aforementioned DJ John Peel, where bands would go in and play live, sometimes even write songs on the spot and have them recorded in this sort of live professional studio. Marky Smith is considerably older than his band even at this point. It feels like he keeps aging, but his band always stays the same age. Maybe not 16, but they're,
they're young.
Decades younger than him. He refers to them as, quote, the kids all throughout the documentary, which I found very charming. So they're like, oh, let's see what kids are doing over here.
It is interesting how the lineup has changed so much, and yet there is a through line in the music, at least back to the mid 80s in this era.
Well, this all leads up to the release of their next record, Fall Heads Roll, which is my favorite record by them.
Oh.
So it's all building up to that. I really think I like this Spencer Burstwhile guy on drums.
He's good.
Anytime he's on a record, I like it. It's also home to my Yummy Yummy song, Breaking the Rules. Don't have a lot of regard for laws and
bit of a rule breaker yourself.
Ordinances and things of that sort.
What's that Rage Against Me? I don't do what they told me.
I don't do what they told me.
Don't do what they told
me. No, I'm not doing what you said to do.
Nope, not gonna do it.
You think I'm gonna frickin' do all that crap? Frick them damn. Do y'all smell bacon?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Oh my God. We're going to get in trouble.
I think there's
we're going to get in so much trouble.
Guys, we're breaking the rules.
Jeez. By this point, Marky Smith seems to have become less demanding of the band. They remark in the documentary that he's given them a lot of freedom in coming up with their parts, something that a lot of members in the past did not enjoy.
Sure.
I mean, there were members who were fired because he didn't like the shirt that they were wearing. So the fact that these are now musicians who are like, yeah, he's like a good boss. He's good enough, you know?
He learned to get out of their way, get out of his own way.
In this documentary, Marky Smith also says that he's becoming a great singer at this point.
I like his singing. I don't know about a great singer.
2006, the band sets out to promote the record on the great highways of these United States. After 4 shows, most of the band members quit, with the exception of Elena, possibly because they were married. It's a little harder to get away from your husband. Marky Smith stated that this was, quote, the best thing that ever happened. He is such a petty little boy.
Dude.
He's such a small little man.
He really is.
No, my band quit. That's fine.
That's actually
great.
good.
In fact, I like it better
I don't like
this
those
way.
guys even.
I like it when I can't finish more than 4 shows of a tour.
I'm
really good for me.
I'm losing so much money. It's so cool. I don't need money. I'm actually better than money.
Well, in line with his own ideals, Marky Smith is cast as Jesus in the BBC sitcom Ideal in 2007.
Ooh.
He then goes on to con a bunch of more musicians into working with him. I mean, he gets another band together to record the 25th Fall album, Reformation Post TLC. Who's in the band? He's still got Elena on keys, of course. And she also sings on The Right Stuff. Tim Presley, obviously Elvis's brother, plays guitar. And Robert Barbato and Dave Spur play bass. So the band now has 2 bass players. And Orfeo McCord plays drums. Orfeo would go on to start the band Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. 2008, the lineup is almost entirely replaced for the next album, Imperial Wax Softened.
That's so funny to name your last album Reformation. Like, hey, we got a new lineup. And then the next album after that, never mind.
Again,
New lineup.
these folks would stick around for pretty much the remainder of the band. So from 2008 until Marky Smith's death, it's pretty much the same band. So you get Peter Greenway on guitar, Kieran Melling on drums, Dave Spur, one of the two bassists, he stays on.
That's good. They kept
And
one of them.
Elena, of course, is eternally on the keys. I did not like Imperial Wax Softened.
I liked it better than the last one.
Fair enough. Bar's low.
Bar's low. I really like 50-Year-Old Man, where he's complaining about Steve Albini not liking him, I think.
You're a Jew. You're a council and a strange little shit. I'm a 50-year-old man and I like you. I'm gonna 3 foot rock your heart on.
Dude, there's this complete has nothing to do with this, but there's this show you guys gotta watch. It's like an animated show. It's kind of about like family dynamics. It's called Family Guy, and it
Never heard
is
of it.
outrageous. It is absolutely hysterical. You guys have to
Laugh
watch
out
it.
loud funny.
You write it down in your
writing it
notepads
down.
right now. Family Guy. You make sure watch it tonight. It's insane.
Okay.
There's this guy and he's always like, "Ooh, Brian."
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then Brian's this dog.
Who's Brian?
He's
He's a dog?
this dog. Yeah,
Oh.
he talks, but he's like really
talks?
smart. Yeah,
Huh.
and then Peter's like, "Oh, Lois."
Who's Peter?
Whoa. Who's... Yeah.
He's so he's the family guy.
This...
His name's
This
Peter.
sounds
Griffin.
unreal.
He's fat, and he's always like, "Oh, Lois."
Oh, come on.
Yeah, and
no,
then Lois,
really?
Lois has this orange hair, and she's always like, "Hey, Peter."
Whoa.
She's like so annoying. And then their daughter Meg.
Did you hear that the dog talks?
Yeah, it's insane.
And he talks. Who's
He's-
Stewie?
Stewie's he's a baby.
He's a baby?
He's got like a football.
Does the
head.
baby talk
And
too?
Like, hey, Arnold.
He has a British accent.
Whoa.
He's a baby.
That's
How does that
hilarious.
happen?
He goes, "Ooh, Brian."
2010, Marky Smith does one of the best things he will ever do, which is appear on Gorilla's Glitter Freeze on their record Plastic Beach.
He finally did something not resentful of one of his fans.
Listen, you weren't critics, I believe you.
The Fall puts out their 27th record, Your Future, Our Clutter. I love the album title, and I like the song Funnel of Love.
I think
That's
this is a good record.
You like it?
I think it's good. I wouldn't say it's one of their very best.
Defend
but
it.
I like it. I think it's breezier than they usually are. I think it doesn't rock as hard as Country on the Click, but it more leans into rocking than some of their more experimental albums have. And it just, to me, it sounds like a band in the studio. You said that like he was maybe laying off the band a little bit more around this time, and I think that comes through in this record. It sounds like a band kind of like having fun.
It's such a crazy, crazy, crazy thing. And weak in the knees, my whole head spinning. As I go deep in the funnel of love. I tried and tried to run and hide. I even tried to run away. You just can't hide from a tunnel of love. It's gonna get you someday.
I get the impression he was in a happy marriage for the first time in his life.
Sure. With a much younger German woman.
It probably helped, I guess, but I think it was probably for the best for both of them.
Sure.
I did hear a quote from her that I'd like to share, that while they were living together around this time, they used to have to go to Marky's parents and ask to borrow money so they could buy cigarettes.
Which would just be his mother at this point.
Yeah, I guess his mother to go ask to borrow money for cigarettes. That's sad. This is theoretically a successful band.
Yeah.
Almost legendary, you know?
Yeah.
I would say definitely legendary even. That breaks my heart. The music business, man.
Yeah.
particularly when you're bad at it and you burn every version.
But they're still getting studio time somehow. Every year.
They're always on a record label pretty much. Yeah. It's weird.
2011, we get Ersatz GB. I found this one pretty unremarkable as well as the next one.
One of my favorite I don't like this band lyrics comes from Ersatz.
What do you got?
So sick of Snow Patrol. Such a funny band.
It's a weird band to get upset over.
To not like, especially in I guess 2011 where that was Snow. Was that still a big song?
Ish.
Or Chasing Cars rather.
It's probably not. It's not the song.
Yeah.
Like Coldplay is a much more easy target.
Yeah.
Maybe that's who he meant.
I wouldn't doubt that he'd know the difference.
So, the cold one. Snow Patrol.
If I lay here, if I just lay here, would you lie with me and just forget the world?
2013, so one of the rare breaks between years. We get their 29th record, Mitt, M-I-T-T. I don't know if that's a dig at Mitt Romney, who would have just lost the presidency.
They're dunking.
Ooh, Mitt Romney.
I think this is a contender for one of the worst albums.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't hate it.
Did not care for it.
I think it's okay. This is like a record that like I'm a fan of this band and the way they sound in general, and I am very happy to listen to this. Couldn't recommend it.
This is when folks start cashing in on the fact that they were in the band because they realize we can write books about our time with this weird guy and people will buy those
If
books.
nothing else, he's a character.
Yep. So in 2014, we get a bunch of different books written about the band. Simon Wollstonecroft, one of the drummers, writes a book called You Can Drum, But You Can't Hide. About his time with the band. This is also when a bunch of folks who had quit the Fall form a band called Bricks and the Extricated. Those folks include Brick Smith, as well as both the Hanley brothers, Steve and Paul. They're fine.
I thought that was a pretty okay record.
Yeah, they would write new songs, but also play old Fall songs that they had written for the Fall, so they had writing credit on those. Or at least wrote them, and Marky Smith denied them writing credit. Steve Hanley, clearly working through his time in the band, wrote what many consider to be a favorite book and one of the best books on the band called The Big Midweek, Life Inside the Fall. I did read that for this, and it fluctuates between him liking Marky Smith and him being embarrassed by Marky Smith. I do think, especially now that Marky Smith has passed, the Hanley brothers kind of are viewing it through rose-tinted glasses because some of these things that Steve had written about were pretty unforgivable.
He doesn't ever even really try to paint a picture of himself as being pleasant to be around.
No, and I think that's what some of these people enjoy about him, that he's like, he is a guy. He's a real guy.
Yeah.
He's a character. There's no one quite like him. But you don't want to be around him all the time.
Yeah, it must have been, it's like, you can't call him a hypocrite. You can't call him a lot of things, but is that so cool? Yeah. I don't know.
2015, we get Sublingual Tablet. I wrote, is he doing a Bob Dylan impression on this album? I like Dedication, Not Medication.
That's a good one. I like this record a lot.
Yeah?
I really enjoy She's Off to Venice with the Girls. He's been waiting for so long. It's just a fun, I don't know. It's like, I feel like that's my guess is his wife went on vacation without him and he was like, I got to be a loser for a week.
Which again, she is probably the best thing that ever happened to him.
Sure. It's not that he hates his wife. It's just he gets to be even more of a loser scumbag for a week than he usually is.
But again, considering what his lifestyle was, I don't know what she was holding him back from doing.
Yeah, I hear you.
She's off to Venice with the girls. He's been waiting so long. She's off to Venice with the girls. He's been waiting so long. In Redland, all the lessons. His skin, whose isn't too beautiful. The best thing for you to do
Brick Smith pens her own book about the fall entitled The Rise, The Fall, and The Rise.
Oh my god.
That
It's a
sucks.
pretty good one, though. It's a pretty good book. I would highly recommend it. It kind of lays out her vision for the band that didn't come to fruition. But I think that if she had more say in the band and could have taken them down a more glam sort of avenue, I think it might have really helped them find more success than they had. There's no one really quite like them, which I think has helped their legacy in the long run. But I think at the time they would have appreciated the money that would have come from some more radio play.
Yeah. I do feel like there was a lot of like, they're developing a sound and it gets better and better. And then he fires everybody that's helped him make that sound so good.
There's that line in It's a Wonderful Life. Confound it, man. Are you afraid of success?
Yeah.
And I think he is.
I think he truly is. I think he likes being a kind of a degenerate. That's like his vision of himself and he can't give it up.
Yeah. Elena and Marky Smith divorce. And she at long last leaves the band in 2016. Immediately after that, Marky Smith's health seriously declines. 5 decades of smoking and drinking and doing all kinds of drugs have left him riddled with all sorts of health issues, specifically respiratory problems.
Not to mention probably driving around in a van and sleeping in a car and
the
eating
lifestyle,
dirt food. And
it's pretty bad.
yeah.
He has to perform in a wheelchair from this point forth. When he performed at all, shows were routinely canceled. Marky Smith still manages to put out another record, their last, 31st Fall album. New facts emerge with the remaining members of the band.
I liked Grounds Boy, Treated Like Scum. You know, I think that's a nice, there is something kind of like these are for working class people about Marky Smith songs.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to complain about how much it sucks to have a job. For a guy who's never had a job since he was 16
He
years
worked
old.
2 jobs
That
when
guy-
he was 16.
That guy has never lost his resentment of having to work a job. You know, for as much as he, walked through the razor's edge of poverty, he's like, I'm not going to get a job about it
And he didn't.
because that is
True to his
demeaning.
word.
Treated like scum, property. I like that, you know?
Sure.
I think it sucks that one of the very last songs that he ever put out with the name of the band being The Fall. Just this is one of my send-offs to the world is Quit iPhone.
Yeah.
That's a bummer to
Come
me.
on, man.
That's
Come on.
that's so boomer.
Yeah.
That's so like, okay,
Phone bad.
phone bad. Exactly.
Why don't you leave him alone? Why just can't you quit that iPhone? Why don't you just quit iPhone? Just quit iPhone.
In 2018, Marky Smith died 2 months before his 61st birthday. He had been battling cancer in his lungs and kidneys. He was romantically involved with his then manager, Pamela Vander, even to his death.
It's so weird to me that this guy
He's a serial monogamist.
needed to be dating someone that works with him officially.
Always. It's like that whole thing with like how doctors typically end up marrying each other because it's like you need someone who can relate. Who else could understand what is happening in the fall?
It's
Aside
true.
from someone who was there.
I also worry that it's a control freak thing with him. You have to imagine he can't imagine loving someone that's not his employee.
I think in a testament to how comparatively nice things were at the end of the fall, the surviving members of the fall get a new singer, one Sam Curran, and start a new group called Imperial Wax, where they are making some new songs, like they did on their debut record, Gaswork Saboteurs, but also playing old fall songs and kind of like reliving those days and enjoying that time that they had together as the last members of the band.
Yeah. I think Craig and the Hanley brothers do a band called House of All.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
very good, fall style rock music. It's cool.
2019, Bricks and the Extricated put out their 3rd record, Super Blood Wolf Moon. It's a good title.
It's all right. I like that
And
record.
just last year, 2024, Brick Smith's band Bricks and the Extricated, who are still playing and include Paul and Steve Hanley, bring in more members of the fall. Imperial Wax put out a new record, their 2nd, entitled Tranquilizer. And that's basically the fall. Joe, you have shown me so many great acts who I've come to adore. Sparks, Let's Wrestle, and Wesley Patrick Gonzalez, Carla Bley, Prince to an extent. I think of you when I think of these artists, and it makes me like those artists more. That is not what has happened with the fall. My reaction to hearing The Fall is the same reaction to when you hear a car crash or machinery malfunctioning. It just sounds wrong and it upsets me. This was torture. I hate this band. I hate this band so much.
I think what's so fun about that is that we both went into it with a pretty similar level of interest, which is to say almost none. Just like there's a lot of albums. Let's do it. And we came away with such different experiences. I think they're so much fun. I really enjoy them. I think it's just, they're like a light in my life. I can listen to them all the time and not get bored. And I think of how much you hate it. And unfortunately, I get a slight sadistic thrill.
Owen told me on the drive over here, I only listened to 2 of the albums, and I said, that's enough. I don't need to know which. I don't need to know how many times you listen to it. This was the hardest thing I've done for this show, hands down. I would do Aerosmith 100 times over. I wanted to like this so much. There are so many aspects of this that I like so much. There are so many bands that I like and love and adore that love The Fall.
Yeah.
And this was not one for me.
Yeah.
But I gave it 150%. I listened to every single one of these albums 3 times, twice in the span of 5 years.
That's 186. Am I doing that right? How many hours is that? That's got to be like,
I don't know,
weeks of your life.
The episode's over. I don't need to think about this band anymore. They have been living rent-free in my head for 5 years now. They're going to stick with me, even though I don't think I'll ever listen to another Fall song on my own volition. I do feel like I wasted much of my life on this band.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You love this.
I do. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Industrial estate. Yeah, yeah.